Fission radio show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear.
Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. That's fission with an F, F-I-S-S-I-O-N. Since Fukushima, that's what we're living in. We still have a nuclear volcano going off in Japan that everyone seems to ignore. So today is Call-In Friday, and I thought what I'd do is bring on a guest host with me, and I kind of want to, I'm going to introduce him, but I do want to put a little interview through him. I'm going to be speaking with and sharing the show with Vince Easley today from What Matters Worldwide. Hi, Vince. How are you?
Hey, Lonnie. Thanks for having me on. I'm really honored.
Yeah, well, I'm really grateful that you can be with me, and I decided on these Fridays, every few Fridays, I'm going to have a guest host, and I had heard on Facebook that this is marks the 3rd year anniversary with UCY TV, and that piqued my interest because I was not aware of that. So I want to ask you a little bit about that so people can kind of get to know who you are and how you came to this venue and what prompted you to really actively engage in this issue.
Wow, this is a story I love to tell, and I think I'll sit down here and give a telling of it. Well, I would say it started about 2010 when I entered into the internet. I'd been aware of it. My mom did stuff online and all that, but about the only thing I did on a computer was play some Hoyle Casino Hold'em, Texas Hold'em. But anyways, along a little later, I come across a shortwave FM broadcast. I was living about 40 miles from anywhere, way out there in towards Tilly, Arkansas. And this fellow rebroadcasted some of the internet radio, like Republican Broadcasting for one. I've got a friend, Thomas Lockevar Stewart, broadcast over there. Great guy. Met him out in Bunkerville. But anyways, let me go on. So I move along, and I decide to hit the trail again and go traveling. And I normally do every year, try to make a trip generally out west. But on this trip, I ran into JJ against the wall, and he had been involved with several other radio networks and helping.
When you say you ran into him, what does that mean?
Yeah, I met him on the old gray dog, Greyhound.
Okay.
We was both headed out to Vegas, and boy, we met, and I'm pretty sure that he, like me, has never met a stranger. We had the whole bus engaged. We broke down outside of Gallup, and a lot of people got disappointed, but I just take it all as part of the adventure, and so yeah, we're on the side of the interstate, and snow flying, and just everybody's just really engaging, and for me, see, maybe 20 odd years ago, I'd been introduced to an alternative view of history, and a big shout out to Ralph Epperson on that. He and I spoke on the phone many times over the years. I've had him on as my guest a few times. Matter of fact, he was my last guest. I thought it very appropriate. Of wow, has it been a year? It's been some time ago. Yeah, he joined me for my last broadcast and of What Matters Worldwide. Since then, I've been doing radio at Real Liberty Media, where Hal Anthony broadcasts from, a 26 series, our volume set of This Is No Time for Rational Thinking. And coincidentally, today is the 23rd letter of the alphabet, W, and so for What Matters Worldwide. And I'll be following here
Wait a minute,
hour
what
after
does that mean? Today's the 23rd letter of the alphabet. What do you mean?
Well, yeah, there's 26 letters, so I decided to do a 26 volume set with several episodes too. So it's never ending. There's always new episodes to add to each letter that has relevance, and it's worked out just really gratuitously the whole way along. How topic fell to that letter that fell for that week. So pretty amazing. But back to the journey to radio. So JJ and we became friends. Matter of fact, I went camping. This was a wonderful year back in 2011. And sometimes we do get to go back. I got to go back and reconnect with my first love from back when I was a teenager. And we hung out, and I had such a wonderful time. So I decided to set me up a camp kind of close to her. She lived up in St. George. So I found me first one where JJ, he and John and
do you mind
JJ's daughter.
Do you mind if I interrupt you here? I want to
Not at all.
really get to the when you met JJ. Did you guys say that you were not on the radio at that time, right? You met him on a bus,
right? And he did radio.
He was on the radio already. Okay,
that's correct. And then so when Jules
and where
started,
is JJ from? Where was he traveling from?
He upstate New York.
Okay, so
and I want to tell you, Greyhound is an adventure. That's for certain. If you Google Greyhound sucks, there's I don't know how many millions. I think 10 million or perhaps even more. Yeah, it's quite an
you couldn't
quite an
pay
experience.
me money to travel on a Greyhound.
I love it.
I would not do it. I'll be honest.
It is such an adventure. I love the journey, the destination. You know, hey, that's where you're going to, but enjoy where you're at along the way.
Okay, so back to your story. Okay, so you and JJ met, and then how long after you and JJ met were you introduced the idea of maybe I'm going to be on the radio?
First, real quick, hey, there's Dan in Tennessee in chat at UCY right now. He's also a former host here at UCY.tv, and he and I met out in Vegas here, a couple years back, I guess, wasn't it, Dan? I've met a few folks. Many of us has talked. It's a wonderful place right here, UCY.tv. And I'm going to say Jules has compiled the greatest voices of all the most important information, everything that is relevant to how this world is being operated in today. It's here. This is the archives, the annals of history. And
I mean, I concur completely. The shows that are on this radio station are so fascinating, and you're like, wow. And you really do not hear it on other, quote, alternative radios. You hear some of the views, but really, this is a really great little venue.
Yes, fantastic. And
so thank you, Jules.
Yes.
So anyways, but I'm still curious, how long before you got on the radio between the time you met JJ and then you decided, hey, I think I'm going to be doing this?
Well, it came around to where after discovering internet radio, and I'm saying, wow, these people are talking about things I was talking about way back when.
Right.
And, I've been, shouting some of the same things for 20-something years, I guess now. So it was, I decided, look, let me take a look at everything. I'm going to set aside all my beliefs, all that I hold dear, and I'm going to take a look at everything from other people's point of view. So I set out on this voyage of discovery. I guess, well, let me refer to Ashra. She says to me, after I created a public profile page, she says, what are you known for? I said, well, kind of paraphrasing quite a few things, but the future is yet to be seen. So I decided to make a public declaration, a public record of a surge. And so as it came along, I called in to JJ a few times. Art Underground. I did some radio with him, and eventually come about in 2013 that Dr. Carpenter, has just been berated by the FDA and the AMA and the federal Just Us system. It's criminal what they're doing. That's the criminal Just Us.
Yes, it is.
Oh my! She asked me to sit in and do her show for her. I'm sorry if it was Oracle or Orion, but both of them are gone. Couple of 2 or 3 stations that are networks that some folks were involved in putting together, and so be 4 years. This come August 19th, UCY.TV 4-year anniversary, and Jules created this network. She decided to take this and keep herself in control because people have egos, and so there were some problems. I guess I'm not privy to the details, but I do know that Jules did it right this time. So there's no squabbling, and she put so much work in. I thought, this is something that I have been trying to create this network, and I don't have to feel like I have any power, control, or anything, but to contribute. And I found this venue with a lot of great folks over here, and I wanted to do anything that I could to help and kind of just give Jules any kind of break that she did. So I did publications for a long time. We got bots just doing that now, but every day I set the schedule for, I don't know, it's a long time. It's a year and a half or more. And this really gave me purpose. I like to say that UCY...
That's a lot of responsibility, actually, to be honest.
I like to think it's UCY is a part of me. So I'm very proud to do what I can. I'm producing for Chris on Voice of Rebellion Sunday nights now.
What does that mean when you say I'm producing for? This is a curious thing for me. When people say they're producing, what is your activities as a radio producer? What would you
Okay.
be?
Well, first of all, I host the call. I connect to the network just like you do. I bring Chris in. I take in. I republish his information. As my brother says, revise, edit. So I take his information, I republish it to the Facebook page that I created with some others, Grammy Mary, Gary L., and a few folks, Eric Kears over there, reallibertymedia.com. And from there, I promote some of UCY.TV shows, and specifically for Chris, I post the information there about the show for the night. And then I host the switchboard for callers. And I might add in a little bit with him now and then, but generally I sit there quietly in the background.
Okay. Well, look, let me give the phone number out in case anybody wants to call and ask you or me or discuss anything with us, ask us a question. The number is 718-717-8296. You are listening to the Age of Fission radio show with guest host Vince Easley, who I have actually been a little bit interviewing so I could get to know him a little bit more. He's piqued my interest. So, Vince, this is my thing. I think that UCY.TV actually reflects a lot of America. I mean, I'm in Oregon, you're in Arkansas, Jules is in New York, so we're sort of I think these shows and the venues and the things that come to us here, we're seriously not bought off mainstream people. We reflect the things that real Americans who are paying attention to discuss, and we all have different opinions. That's the beautiful thing about, if you listen to the venues on this radio show, is on this radio station, is it's not just all the same political thought, it's not all just the same interest in lifestyles. It's a serious variety of concepts that are presented here, and I think this is what's really necessary and needed in our country. I think we are just dying of thirst here for real information and to give each other courage to move forward. I think that's one of the things I say every time I end the radio show is put your courage feet on. And so it's like it's part of the adventure, right?
Absolutely. Excuse me, I was unmuting. I was over there giving a shout out to Vince Flash. That's the combination of Flash and Vinny.
Okay.
Radio at noon Central.
So you do this radio chat while you're on the radio. You go into chat rooms, right, and talk to people while you're. I've seen people do that on UCY. I personally can't do that, even when I'm just talking on the radio on shows when I don't have to interview and engage people in their thoughts. I have no capacity to like sit and type and chat and talk at the same time.
Well, I do that too for Kira. She does a broadcast on Saturdays, and we simulcast to.
And what's the name of that show?
It's called The Bridge with Kira.
Okay.
And I'm her ASPRO man, assistant producer man, that is.
Okay. It's like that joke, we learned it in our Spanish class, right? The guy goes to the bar, he's all drunk, and he's in a Mexican restaurant. And one says caballeros and one says damas, right? Men and women. And he's like, well, I don't know if I'm a caballero, but I don't think I'm a damas. So, no.
When you tell some jokes in Spanish, there's idioms that or idioma in Espanol. It sounds like you're saying one thing and you're actually saying another. So there's a lot of great plays.
Yeah, well, a lot of words in Spanish are exactly the same in English. When you read them, you just can't hear them right because we say the letters differently. That's all it is.
Sí, emborrado.
Sí. Está correcto. So that's another thing. So you know what's happening here in Eugene today? This is a very exciting thing. The air is all astir. Old Mr. Trump is coming to town. It's a very interesting day today going to be here in Eugene, Oregon.
You know what speaks volumes is the fact that obvious evil people that are out for the interest of this network of folks that kind of run things around this here place that we call the world, that these are the two people that are presented for Americans to choose from. It's disgusting. It's
really hilarious because, Hillary Clinton, or Monsanto Clinton, as I call her, works for the lobbyists, and Trump is a lobbyist. You know what I mean? Like, he pays lobbyists. He's the guy who buys the politicians, and she's just the butt politician. So how anybody thinks that either of those two people could... What's really interesting, what I find about this, of the few Clinton supporters that I've seen on Facebook, is that their whole thesis is that she's just been politically smeared, that she's just not that corrupt, that we're just buying a bunch of lies. I'm like, wow, dude. At the base of it, she voted for the Iraq War. Let's just talk about that one. There was so much evidence that was completely wrong and backwards. 1 million people, do we forget that several million people protested worldwide against it? And the empire just struck back anyway. So I don't.
It really is the empire in Star Wars.
Yes, it is.
The corporation that is the country.
That's right, the empire. We do have a deep state. This is kind of interesting, this consciousness of knowing that we have a deep state. This is something I've been pondering. Like, here we have a society where for over 70 years, really since JFK got killed, our country has just been in a collective state of fear. And let's just don't talk about it, and let's pretend that it's all not true. And that's kind of where we're at. Only the problem with that attitude now is it's killing our oceans. It's killing our air. Like, they're chemtrailing us, and nobody. A few times I say to people, like, I was traveling up north to Washington, and I stopped in some godforsaken little podunk town somewhere. Stopped at a diner, and I was coming out, and they were like chemtrails, like 12 in a row, like 3 this way, 4 this way, and then they were going diagonally. I mean, they were just blasting this area of northern Washington, and I'm like, I said, don't you guys even pay? They're like, what? Those are just airplanes. I said, are you going to tell me those 2 airplanes jet straying towards each other are airplanes? Look what they're leaving in your sky. So I was like, wow, I never even thought about it like that. I said, you know what? You need to look up geoengineering. Go to Geoengineering Watch and find out, because we have got to take action against this. I mean, I'm nonplussed at the complicity of 3-4. I think that's why they're chemtrailing us, there must be something in it to keep people docile. Well,
this geoengineering is a subject that I looked into extensively. I did I think about four set series of on it. I even had a panel of debunkers on the show for an hour one time, and I let them try to convince me, and eventually they conceded that no matter what, there is geoengineering going on. When you're manipulating, even if it's by accident, even if it's just water vapor, they are still creating climate. They're creating clouds by default. So, but when you look in deeper, it's quite obvious. It's been stated. There's patents. There's studies. Declarations and
these are
the
big
UN.
corporations. This is not a small operation. Something big. This is big, expensive financial. I mean, as I'm looking out the window right this second, there they go again. There's a little plane up there in the sky leaving a little white tail and letting everybody believe. And then in 15 minutes, what happens is it disappears. They've gotten very clever about these chemtrails. They disappear, they come out, they disappear, they dissipate, and then 20 minutes later, they reappear as big puffy clouds. You don't see them. It looks like they've appeared out of the sky because the plane is long gone from 20 minutes ago, but then all of a sudden these clouds start appearing. It's a chemical interaction. It is like freaky, to be honest. It's like, who are these Caligulas? Like, these guys seriously, I've said this so many times, they make Caligula look like an infant.
Yeah, it's these people that are doing these things are more like Nero, I guess, too. Watch it burn. Hey,
Yeah.
Welcome, Sir Handsome. That is Jose. He was my second hour host for What Matters Worldwide for a good bit of it. And
what's his name? Say this again.
This is Jose. He's in chat right now as Sir Handsome, as he is known by many far
Sir
and wide.
Handsome.
Sí, en verdad. Que no, carnal.
Well, yo no creo hasta que conozco.
He laughs at my accent in Espanol.
I bet he does. Where is he from?
He lives down in Texas.
Oh my gosh, really?
On the frontier.
Right on the border.
Pretty close right there.
And yeah, I have to say, it's interesting being an American thinking about traveling around the country and going to different parts of the country. Because I think this is one of those challenges that we have in a unique way in our country is we have all these different parts of the country that really basically have different cultures. And we're attempting to become one with a constitution that basically gets ignored. It used to work when the government and everybody else abided by it, but in the last, 100 years, I mean, it's pretty obvious we're taking a slow train to self-destruction. That's what I think.
Well, we're not self-destructing. We're being destructed by others. We get blamed, us. I say we, us as individuals. We get blamed for polluting the planet, when in fact it is these corporations that, they can pay a fine and move on. It's just,
well,
cost
I'm gonna
business.
Challenge you on that one, Vince, because we are those we purchase their products. Nobody takes to the streets. We are basically, I mean, honestly, we are responsible. This is yes, it's them. This is one of the things Dr. John Goffman said that it's really important to do in the anti-nuclear fight is instead of just calling them these corporations like NUMEC and all these, like out at Republic Services. We need to talk about the individuals, the human beings, making those choices and making all those wrong choices. But I think that we are responsible because nobody's taken to the streets. There's no Earth Day protest. There's no millions of people demanding justice for the people of St. Louis or Flint, Michigan. The people in Flint, Michigan, Barack Obama just this week said, yeah, well, as long as you're using a filter on your water and you're drinking bottled water, don't worry, it's just fine. We'll get to it. I mean, that is just an unconscionable act. I'm just nonplussed at the lack of concern even the people living in Flint or even in St. Louis have for themselves. If I lived in St. Louis, I guarantee you I'd have a pup tent put up on the governor's lawn.
Right. I guess we're allowed to protest. Thank God they've given us a free speech zone. And sometimes they actually put up a little fence and a sign that tells us where we can do so.
Well, that's illegal. I mean, this whole thing about the Unpatriot Act being the new rule of law in the United States is bull. I mean, honestly, since it passed, I mean, this is why I got investigated by the Capitol Police. Because I vehemently protest. I do not concede that. I think it's an illegal act put in by an illegal president and propped up by obviously an illegal Congress. I mean, these guys, I'm just nonplussed. This is why Ron Wyden's office doesn't answer my phone calls, you know. So speaking of phone calls, let me give out the number again. It's 718-717-8296. Although I have to admit, Vince, you're usually the one person that calls in, so...
Okay, I corrected the posting I had at 10 a.m. Eastern. I copied you, and I didn't proof it. So, yeah, there you go, realmedia.com listeners. I did post that wrong. So today, yeah, this is the Age of Fission with Lonnie Clark, and I'm sitting in as a guest. And we do have call in if you'd like to join us at 718-717-8296. And,
yeah, we'd like to talk about all this stuff. So today, you know, here in Eugene, Oregon, I want to get back to this whole idea of Donald Trump being in town. And it's going to be an interesting thing tonight because there are several groups organizing. There's one group organizing to get out the vote and ignore the Trump campaign. Another group suggested that they get tickets and don't show up. And then there's another group. There's several groups. There's a group that's going to go protest, and then I know a group of witches that are going to cast spells. That's life in Eugene, Oregon, you know?
That's wonderful.
I thought that
I have
pretty good.
Yeah, I love it. I've done my absolute best to avoid any the propaganda. I mean, political whatever pundits. Yeah. But you can't help, you know, it just filters out on you in the media. And, you know, if you stop in at a friend's house and they got the news on, it's so disgusting. It
yeah,
really
well,
is.
I actually do pay attention to it, Vince, on purpose, because what they're saying to it is, you know, I hearken back to when before Bush stole the election. I can honestly say I was a Democrat. I was busy raising my two kids, scraping by, trying to make a living, figuring out how I could, you know, not struggle every month. And the whole Bush campaign, when Congress did not stand up to Bush, it was so evident. When Congress did not stand up to Bush, we had a chance when the Black Caucus stood up and not one senator stood with him. That's when we got sold down the river. And I actually thought it was kind of ironic that it was the Black Caucus standing up and the white people all just stood by and let us all get sold down the river. I was like, wow, this is history repeating itself, only we're selling our own kids down the river. I mean, it's ever since that has happened, our country has taken a nosedive in, I mean, before that happened, it was the denouement of a cascade of corruption that, you know, when Bush said mission accomplished, that's what he meant. He accomplished his grandfather's task. That's what he was talking about.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, going back to What Matters Worldwide, as I said, I launched it as a maiden voyage of discovery. And so I went and I looked at the who's, the what's, when's, the where, without realizing that I was attempting the trivium method. I've kind of recoined this trivium, the grammar, logic, and rhetoric to seek, see, and say. So I think I saw it pretty well. I traced it down. I could see what it was, and then to be able to reiterate that and with the logic of expressing this to people.
What's your educational background, Vince? If you don't mind me asking, would you? I mean, do you have a formal education? Have you graduated college?
Eighth grade education. I went through.
You have a Lincoln education. That's what I call that, a Lincoln education.
So I went on through 9th and I quit in 10th, but I wasn't doing anything.
Well, because you have a really pretty wide vocabulary and your concept and thought is very well developed, so you must be self-read, pretty thoroughly self-read.
Autodidact for sure. I've read volumes of books. I find it harder to read on a computer screen.
Well,
Just a
it's
book.
unhealthy to read from a computer screen. That's the interesting thing is I read an article maybe 5 years ago talking about like how books, taking books away and making us all go digital is the first step towards illiteracy because your brain. There's something tactile about reading and touching a book that helps us imprint the information more deeply on us. And same thing like with typing. When you're writing, if you're just typing words, you'll learn how to spell because it's a tactile thing. It's a connection between our hands and our brain.
I'm the worst speller, and reading as much as I do. But I've done those things. You've seen them where they put a whole paragraph up with all the letters out of order and just breeze right through them. So that's
Well,
my
this is what I would
explanation.
say. If you think that you're a bad speller, do some tapping on your clavicle when you say that, and your spelling will improve. Because really, that's a personal self block. And
Yeah.
that's another thing that I can't wait to get Brad Yates back on the air.
Okay, I'm tapping my cervical. I
Yeah.
think that's wait. Where's that
Clavicle.
at?
It's your clavicle.
Clavicle.
That's that little V right below your neck. You just tap
Oh,
right
there.
and you
There.
think about whatever it is that's bugging you, and then it'll process out. It's like to me, this is why I really love interviewing Brad Yates because since I have found EFT, emotional freedom technique, a lot of my childhood trauma, a lot of things that tracked me through a long time. Really, I wouldn't say it is gone, but it is not a prominent part of my life anymore. And it's really been transforming. So I encourage, and I think in this age of fission, we need people, we need to take action. We need to find ways that we can help ourselves feel better because we're being bombarded by chemtrails and by radiation, which are going to make us feel sick. I mean, right now, many people are feeling symptoms of the flu. They can't break this cough. They're like, no energy. And those are just environmental degradations having effect on us. And it's important for us to decide. When I say in my intro that happiness is resistance, I seriously mean it. Like, they want us to feel miserable because miserable people are easy to control. So, no. Like, I'm not going to feel, I actually feel very excited that we get to live in this time period because it's up to us. When we think about the gravity of the situation right now on our planet, our generation of people, the people who are now on the planet, are going to be the ones who decide whether we're going to make the effort to save humanity and save life as we know it. Because we are literally facing an extinction level event that if we want to survive, we're going to have to decide we want to.
You're absolutely right, and this is a point I make. We are at the pivotal point in history, and as Hal from Behind the Woodshed says, this is foretold history being written now. And I like to say this book that I'm writing in my head, the archived events of the end of the world. It has an alternative ending, and we have to play the part to bring that about.
That's right.
And,
we have to decide. We get to choose. This is what it's about, choosing life, that it really matters, that we are strong enough. That's why I tell people, put your courage feet on. It's a phrase I coined a while back because really, it's not easy. It's a lot easier just to say I can't do it and it's too big and to be overwhelmed. It is. You just have to learn to do it afraid. Like, you put your courage feet on, and that doesn't mean you don't feel fear. You just do it. And if it doesn't work, you don't give up and say, oh, that didn't work. I can't do it. I failed. It's just going to happen. No, you get back up, and you keep getting back up until you can walk, until there's enough of us to stop them from destroying the planet. I mean, that's what I think, because this is like serious shit, man. We cannot take this lightly. How many dead whales have washed up since January 1st? Lots. Over 100. What did we say? 200 tons of dead salmon washed up on the shores of Chile this last week. People protested. They were freaked out.
Yeah, it's biblical in proportion.
Well, to be honest, when I hear people say this was foretold, this is my issue with the Bible, is it has been used by the bankers as a storybook guide. They create this narrative to make people go, yeah, this is what's happening. It's been foretold, when really it's just about corruption. It's kind of like a guidebook for them. Okay, we'll just make it look like this, and this is what's going to happen, and then the people will believe this. I have to say, as an ex-Catholic, I have an aversion to the entire Western way of thinking about the universe.
Well, it's been manipulated for a very, very, very long time. I have to come back and be unserious for a moment.
Okay, I
It
like
seems
that.
seems this is Vagina Friday,
It's
and
Vagina Friday.
yeah,
Excuse me. How
yeah.
did that happen?
Well,
Isn't
well,
it
it
vagina
seems
every day? No
it
offense.
seems to
It is
have,
for me, Vince.
and I did say cervical, so Michael says that's close enough. Michael from Primer Time. Yeah, Jules had, Jules talks about all this manipulation of the biologics of life, and it's just like, like she says, it's mad science gone mad, and these people in the laboratory, we're their lab rats, and it's terrible. But yeah, so. Hal Anthony had made mention to something, and Jules is talking about that in this anyway. So they had to have me do it, so I couldn't not.
Oh, you mean the chat room?
Yes.
Mentioned Vagina Friday.
Yes.
Okay,
And that's a big shout out to JJ, the one and only, our very only JJ.
so
We
there's
love
this
you.
whole conversation that the rest of our listeners aren't really engaged in because they don't go to the chat room. So there's a reason for people to go to the chat room. That's totally hilarious.
Let me just give a shout out to everybody over here at ucy.tv, and you can go /chat, and you can join on along. So you get a lot of listeners downstream on as this goes back up to YouTube for archives. So come on back over every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and join us in chat. So how to do to all y'all, Captain Gringo, Dan Tennessee, Hopper HB, I am Lone Frog, Joe Friday. There's our wonderful Miss Jules, Maddie Clues. And here is one. Nuclear is good. Welcome. This is the first time I've seen here. Possible suspect. That's Michael.
Possible
Shirley,
suspect.
yes.
For real suspect, not just
Yeah.
possible. Nuclear is good. Like. Okay.
And here is Belle. Surely you jest. Sir Handsome, as I said before, my great, wonderful prior co-host,
Sir
Mr.
Handsome.
Jose. Yes, Jose. And Solveneur.
Señor guapo.
Senor Guapo.
El
I was
señor
about to break out in that song. Hey, Victor, que guapo. Solveneur, he does radio here Saturday mornings. He'll be along in the morning.
Sovener,
And
I listen to Sovener's shows.
yeah,
I actually do listen to that show. This is the interesting thing. Then when I said this earlier, this is how I found UCY.TV through Kevin Blanche because I was involved with Kevin when he got his show, and so I started listening to it, and it was like, honestly, my eyes, I went, wow, man, this really opened up a world of ideas because I have actually been seeking out alternative venues, and all of my subscriptions on YouTube that I used to have, I just stopped because I get everything that I need here on UCY.TV.
You bet. Shout out to Tomato too, and then I follow in line in the list there at the chatters, and that's Miguel SLC. He's a man of many names, as am I. There's many Vinnies.
Many Vinnies, yes, there are many Vinnies. So Vince, do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. It's called What Matters, V Easley 2. That's a Roman numeral 2. You just search my name.
Okay.
Yeah, Vincent Easley. You can find me there. If you use your search engine for Vincent Easley.
Because I think that, for our listeners who don't use the YouTube venue, that's a really great way to get other ideas of different ways people report on the same story. I think that's one of the things here that you and I are at least interested in is getting different, not just like one point of view, but different points of view to try to suss up what the reality is. Because we're in a world of hurt I feel like we're in a jar where we've had food dye stirred around, and so we're trying to figure out what the world really looks at while we're swimming through food dye.
I like to tell folks how they're full of bull without offending them. I prefer to offend them and maybe say how we're actually saying the same thing when we're arguing,
Yeah, well, I don't like to. I mean, my thing is, you can't really convince anybody of another point of view. But
That's right.
and in fact, even the facts don't matter to a lot of people. They don't care about the facts. It's their
Facts just, yeah, they just muddy the waters, you know.
Yeah, I mean, talk to anybody who thinks that Karl Rove is a great guy. I mean, they think there are people who actually think that he's a pretty good leader of the Republicans. That was a great guy, and he did accomplish a lot of good. They did get through their program. They really were quite effective at making it firm and which is why we're looking at an election here that maybe will just be a selection. You know what I mean? Like we're just going to have one evil person or the other, and the only alternative, who in my view is Bernie Sanders, is even if Bernie. I mean, I don't know. I'm only going to write in Bernie Sanders' name. I'm not voting for any of those other people. But the ironic part about that is I've had Democrats yell at me and say, if you don't vote for Clinton and Trump gets elected, I'm going to defriend you on Facebook. Somebody said that to me. I was like, fine, defriend you now. Bye. I defriended him right that second. Okay. I mean, honestly, for me, for these Democrats who will click their heels and sig heil and vote for Clinton out of fear of Trump is just absolutely insane. Because in my view, I don't know. I'm only voting for Bernie. That's it. I'm pretty solid. I don't care what they do.
I'm writing myself in if I decide to vote.
You are?
Yeah, the anarchy. That's
well, they love to do that. I think we need to vote even if we don't, no matter what, even if you write in your own name.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to vote.
You're not going to vote. You don't vote.
No.
You're a non-voter.
I've never voted.
Why? You know that less than half of the people in our country vote? And then we wonder why the corporations are running the show. In a democracy, if you want any kind of representative government, you have got to get the vote out.
In order for a vote to count, it'd have to be brought back to the local level, like here in Arkansas. There's a quorum, and that's made up of the districts here of just as the pieces, and then the county judge, which is like an administrator. So we have to bring that to point that this quorum to come together in a quorum and bring it away from the administrative level, because that's where all government.
But the bottom line is, though, Vince, if you're not voting, you're not participating. You're
well,
not. I mean, this is where I really have this serious disagreement with people who say I'm not voting because the system's rigged. Well, the system's rigged because nobody votes. If we had the millions and millions of people who just sat it out and said, no, it's just too corrupt, if those people actually got engaged and we saw a true reflection, I mean, I think if we had 90% of the people voting and the corporations just ran over us still, but I think if we had 90% of the people voting, they would be too scared. If they really thought that 90% of Americans were engaged and gave a crap, they would really hesitate.
So, but in the meantime, you'd be voting for the lesser of the two evils, because all these people that sit in seats of decision in these high places, they're all sold out. They're all controlled, and nobody will get to that level to be able to run unless there's.
Well, this is why I'm voting for Bernie, because when Bernie wins, they're going to have to kill him. I am waiting to watch how they politically murder him when he becomes president, or how they physically murder him. And that's why I'm curious to see who his running mate will be, because that will determine whether they murder him physically or politically. I mean, this is really how it goes. This is how deep. But this is one of the things that Bernie Sanders is encouraging, for people not to just elect him president, but to actively engage and hold these people accountable.
That's exactly right. And the system that they have established, where they've replaced what government is supposed to be, and I hate to even use that word.
We have a call
government,
here. Let me add this caller in.
Great.
Just 1 second.
You're in for it now, Missy.
Good morning. You're on the air with Lonnie Clark and Vince Easley in the Age of Fission radio show.
Am I on the air?
You are on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Es mi carnal.
Well, somebody recognized my voice. Yes, this is Jose.
Hello, Jose.
I understand there's a time delay, and I'm wondering if I'm calling in time to discuss the voting.
Well, we have 15 minutes. So.
What? Well, I might as well just call in next week then.
Yeah, well, please do call in, but let's discuss the voting. We have 10 minutes. I doubt if in 10 minutes you'll change your mind or I'll change mine, but let's discuss it.
Well, it's not a matter that I'm trying to change your mind. Vincent kind of knows my history on the whole voting thing. I'll start with shame on you, Vincent, for not voting. But I will point out that I have voted once in my entire life. I'm 56 years of age. That one time that I voted, my candidate won.
Okay.
But he did not get the majority of the popular vote. So I decided, what the hell did I bother voting for? Right?
Well, but that's the thing about how we run our democracy. It's not a consensus voting. It's majority wins.
It's not a majority wins. I voted for Bush. Gore got the majority of the votes, but Bush became president or remained president. Anyway, but I agree with Vince.
Wait. You voted for Bush?
Yes, don't hold that against me. Okay, I was under medication at the time.
But he still won. I don't get what you're talking about. Mission accomplished. Yes. They stole the vote. Like, who gives a crap?
Right. Well, right. I won, and that was part of the waking moments when I said, "Holy crap!" I voted for Bush because I'm in Texas, and he was our governor.
No
right?
way. That's why.
Well, is this being recorded? Anyway. Okay, I have made mistakes before, right? I've been divorced 4 times, but that's another topic. Okay.
Me too, as a matter of fact.
Well, anyway, I proposed, Vincent, do you remember what I proposed at World Truth? Was it the 28th Amendment or the 26th Amendment? I caught hell for it, regardless of what it was.
One law that everybody has to vote.
Right. I proposed that voting become mandatory.
In Australia, they charge you $1,000 if you don't vote.
Okay, that's a little harsh. But my suggestion was, and I don't have the proposal before me, in front of me, because I heard y'all talking. I'm like, I'm going to call in. Okay, I proposed that to become a citizen of these United States, you have to vote. When you vote, you get a receipt that becomes your proof of citizenship until the next election. Okay?
Uh-huh. So if you don't vote, you're not considered a citizen, and you don't gain the benefits out of the federal government funds.
Exactly.
You and your family lose the right to all of these government programs if you don't participate and vote. You know what, Jose? I think that's a great idea. I sort of like that. I think that would get people to vote.
Well, you and I are the only ones that think that's a great idea, right, Vince? Because I caught hell over it. Anyway.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Well, because really, seriously, if you don't want to you don't have to participate with the federal government. If you don't want to be part of that, then don't.
That's not true. We're forced. We're forced in every aspect of life.
That is true. I mean, I get you on the big picture, Vince. I see exactly what you're saying. Like, and on top of that, what if they wanted to scrub the voter rolls? Oh, you didn't vote, so you don't count. You know what I mean? Like, now we're talking. My big thing is the number one thing we really have to push for. And Brad Freeman of BradBlog.com, he reports on this quite excellently about the number one thing we must do is get rid of the electronic voting machines. They are they're in very bad shape. They can easily be hacked. They don't even in the United States, we don't have the parts to replace on these voting machines. So a lot of the voting machines are just in complete disrepair. So we don't really have even a fair voting system because the votes aren't being counted, as we've seen in the democratic process.
Yeah. And by the way, I was born and raised and still live in Alice, Texas, of the infamous Precinct 13 ballot box that disappeared, that got Lyndon B. Johnson elected way back when. So I'm very sensitive about the whole voting issue and not counting ballots business, because I feel as a city, we're responsible for the whole Vietnam War business.
Okay, so, well,
you know,
let me ask you this question. When you voted for, what was that? I mean, that was the one time you voted. You don't regularly vote in all the local elections, and, you get your ballot and you could cast a vote. I mean, you don't participate even in that, like the water board commissioner or your county commissioner. You don't participate in any of that, or the mayor?
I do not. I never have. Okay, and shame on you for making me use negative statements, because I have this whole thing about where I try to speak positively.
Me too. I agree. I mean, you can say you choose to make other choices. I understand.
Right. I go by the philosophy of, if you vote, you're only encouraging them to do, and they're going to do whatever the hell they please anyway, because our system is broken. But let me go on and explain a little bit more. Back to the mandatory voting, I propose as part of the amendment, I was proposing that because we are making it mandatory for people to vote, we have to give them an option in the voting process, and that option is none of the above. And if the majority of the voters choose none of the above, that office is eliminated.
Wow. That's an interesting summation. And then, but what happens with those administrative duties that office does? Who does that?
Well, if the population says we don't want these people up there, obviously it is not necessary, which has become the gist of why people don't vote in the first place. Because if you ask Joe Blow, average Joe off the street, do you vote? He's probably going to say no. I believe, and I may be a little antiquated on my statistics, but I believe if 100% of the registered voters, and that's a tricky word right there, because I'm a registered voter, but I did not register. I was registered against my will. But if 100% of the voters vote for example, Hillary Clinton, right? She will still be getting the votes of the minority of the people in the United States. She will still be a minority candidate.
Well, that's because more than 50% of the people who can vote don't vote.
Right, exactly.
I mean, that's the issue. This is when you say our system's broken, it is broken from the top down and the bottom up. The top down is corrupt, but the bottom up has abdicated their responsibility. We're like a bunch of deadbeat dads who are like, yeah, well, I mean, maybe I'll go see the kids when I feel like it, and maybe I'll send them some money when I feel like it. They have, instead of having a responsibility to wow, we've got to make this planet a better place and we've all got to participate. It's not optional. That's my point.
Right.
Right. Okay, so take the vote away, and I mean, you only voted once, and I mean, I can't say that I was any better being a D Democrat. I would go to the polls and just go, oh, D. How do I decide if there's 3 Ds? If it's a woman, I vote for her first. If it's a woman of color, I vote for her first. People of color get voted for before white males. You know what I mean? That's how I voted. So is that any better than not voting?
Well, yeah, and it's and by the way, my mom, rest her soul, one time told me, you don't vote, then you don't have a right to complain. And I said, yes, I do have a right to complain. By not voting, I am casting an opinion, right? I am voting none of the above.
Vote, right.
Right. And I said, but I have a right to complain because people who do vote have messed up the system. Now, that being said, I also advocated for what was the name of my program? It was a mayoral project where I suggested that we get someone in every city in the United States of America to run for mayor, right? Under the promise that if I am elected, I will pass a city ordinance that makes it against the law to take money out of anybody's paycheck within our city limits, which means you cannot collect taxes from people's paychecks unless you are certified by the IRS, which, by the way, the IRS does not provide any sort of certification.
What are you talking
Right?
about, taking money out of your money unless you...
Let me interject. He'd be talking about FICA and Social Security, the Medicare, and all that. But let me interject real quick. That first of all, a democratic republic is voting for representatives, not voting for rulers, and that's what we've been replaced with, extrajudicial system of governance.
We've been replaced with a deep state, and that's what this election has shown us. Like, regardless of what we want, I mean, Bush was an indication that the deep state had taken a firm hold in our country. I mean, they have been blatant since Bush stole the election, and now it's just they don't even care. They're just like, they put up Monsanto, Clinton, and Trump as like our options, our reasonable options, as if they reflect the heart of America. It's just an insane. They don't even care. The deep state is completely in control.
Yeah, and that deep state is that which is replaced what we supposed we had, and that Federal Reserve. The whole system's a scam. It's a Ponzi scam. We're being robbed to the tune of at least 98% of what we produce, and it's skimmed off. So, hey, if we had social programs that we weren't being ripped off for, I say that's great. You know, I'm disabled on Social Security disability and insurance that I paid. It's
right.
a minuscule amount.
You're right. You have a right as an American. This is my thing. I agree with these types of social programs, but look, we have 2 minutes left, but this is what I want to get in before we have to end this conversation is I still think that, look, if we all voted in where we fall down as, it's not just going to the polls and voting, it's up to us to demand that the corruption end. We've had 100 years of Americans deciding that they're not going to engage. I mean, maybe it's our lack of historical knowledge because we don't live beyond 100 years, but, the only way that we're going to take this back is to wrestle it out of the hands of these people that are strangling us. We're going to have to fight back. And the only way we're going to have to fight back is with our minds, not with violence, but with our minds and our decisions to stay actively engaged.
But it has to be from the grassroots. It has to be from the bottom up. You cannot topple the king of the hill. You have to destroy the hill.
You can't smoke the roots. You got to smoke the tops of the grass. Okay.
That's right.
It always comes down to weed, doesn't it?
Doesn't it? Cannabis, because cannabis can. Hey, let me give a shout out real quick. In an hour, I'll be the W. This is No Time for Rational Thinking at noon Central and What Matters Worldwide. So this has been the celebration week of my 3 years here with UCY, and thanks for bringing me on, Lonnie.
Wow,
Jose, thanks, brother.
And thank you, Jose, for calling in. And thank you, Vince, for joining us.
Congrats, Vince, and it was a pleasure talking. I'm hanging up and listening on the computer again. Bye-bye.
It's been really awesome. So thanks, Vince, for joining us. It's been really awesome. I have to say this has been a really enthralling hour. I hope you join me again on another call-in Friday.
Love to. Thank you.
It's really nice, and I love this idea that we have people calling in and engaging us, because these kinds of conversations are what our energy and our thoughts are things. So our decision that we are going to save the planet, we're going to make a difference, it is going to work. And no matter what they say, we are stronger than they are because we're on the side of the correctness. That's what I think. So put your courage feet on. I encourage everybody out there to take some action, get engaged, do your own homework, find out the real facts instead of just listening to other people. Go to the actual documents and figure out your own mission, because you have one. We all have a mission. We're here on purpose. It's on our watch. Put your courage feet on, and we will talk to you guys on Monday. I'll be interviewing someone from St. Louis, hopefully. They'll answer the phone.